Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. The Strait of Hormuz is capturing headlines again as the conflict between the U.S. and Iran escalates. Some commercial operators are reportedly refusing passage even with military escorts because the crews and ship owners don't believe the risk can be managed. But viewing Hormuz as an isolated crisis misses the larger trend. Commercial shipping is increasingly becoming a weapon of war, economic coercion, and political leverage across multiple regions. We've seen attacks and interference in the Gulf of Aden, the Black Sea, the Sea of Azov, the Baltic Sea, and around strategic infrastructure in Central America. To put this in perspective, Reuters has reported that the Ukraine has hit 147 Russian ships just in the month of July so far. That's just one of the regional conflicts. Ships are large, slow, visible, expensive targets. They're hard to hide. A relatively inexpensive drone or a guided munition can damage a vessel worth tens of millions, disrupt cargo, increase insurance costs, and discourage every ship owner from entering the area. The ship doesn't need to sink for the attack to succeed. The objective might be simply to make the route commercially unusable. If insurers exclude the region, crews refuse to sail, or carriers impose large surcharges, the practical result can resemble a blockade. Recent events in Hormuz show that military protection doesn't automatically restore commercial confidence. Global shipping decisions are made by private companies responsible for the ships, their crews, the cargo, the schedules, and the liability. This could be the new normal. Maritime attacks will not need to close every choke point permanently. Intermittent disruption is enough to force structural redesign of global supply chains, and that redesign has profound implications for real estate. For the past several decades, supply chains were optimized for efficiency. Companies concentrated production in the lowest cost location, they minimized inventory, relied on just-in-time delivery, and routed enormous volumes through a small number of ports and distribution centers. That maximized economies of scale, it reduced the marginal cost, and it also removed redundancy. But at its core, it assumed reliable shipping, predictable transit times, and, most importantly, open waterways. Those assumptions are being tested right now. A future supply chain is going to need to be optimized more for resilience than just in time. That means multiple suppliers, multiple ports, larger inventories, alternative transportation corridors, and more manufacturing located near the final customer. That redesign of the global supply chain also means changes in inventory assumptions. When delivery dates become unreliable, manufacturers and retailers need more safety stock. A company that previously carried 30 days of inventory may decide it needs 60 or 90 days, and that doubles or triples the physical space required to store the same product category. The result is not merely more demand for generic warehouses, it creates demand for specialized distribution facilities near population centers, near manufacturing plants, near rail terminals, inland ports, and near highway intersections. Research on maritime choke points shows that rerouting doesn't eliminate disruption. Longer voyages keep vessels occupied and create delays at subsequent ports, reducing effective fleet capacity even after the traffic adjusts. So simultaneous disruptions can spread losses into countries whose own cargo never used the affected passage. The second real estate implication is that port diversification could become more valuable. For years, companies selected the primary gateway largely based on cost and transit time. Increasingly, they're going to be asking whether cargo can enter through a second coast, through a different country, or an inland intermodal terminal. Markets with access to 2 railroads, multiple highways, air cargo, and multiple seaports will command a resilience premium. That creates a new form of location risk. An industrial building might appear to be well located because it's close to a major port, say the Port of Los Angeles. But if its tenants depend on only one shipping route, one supplier, one transportation corridor, that building may carry hidden geopolitical exposure. The risk will eventually appear in insurance costs, in inventory volatility, and in supply shocks. The third implication involves manufacturing. Companies will not necessarily bring every operation home. Domestic production could still be too expensive, and many supply chains can't be replicated quickly. The more likely model is going to be regionalization. Companies will main production facilities in several countries, assemble products closer to customers, and avoid relying on a single source. That increases demand for light manufacturing, for industrial outdoor storage, for supplier parks, for truck terminals, and smaller distribution nodes across secondary markets. We've already seen companies reconsider regional inventory hubs as Middle Eastern instability disrupts the established trade routes. Warehouse construction and leasing in the U.S. and other Western countries also recovering, supported partly by reshoring, by tariff preparation, by data centers, and renewed attention to supply chain resilience. So the investment opportunity is not just to buy warehouses. Investors need to understand which facilities will solve the new problem. A remote warehouse with one tenant and no transportation alternatives might be cheap for a reason. A smaller industrial property near rail and highways might be more strategically valuable than a massive building depending on one import gateway. The tenant mix might also change. Don't just look at the revenue and lease term. Understand where the tenant's inputs originate and how much inventory it's going to carry, the ports that it depends on, whether customers can tolerate delays. Supply chain disruption is becoming part of the real estate credit analysis, and commercial shipping is now part of that battlefield. The lasting real estate consequence will be a transition from efficiency to redundancy. And redundancy does look wasteful during peaceful periods, but during periods of repeated disruption, it can become valuable infrastructure. As you think about that, have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.